The Red Zone. Please subscribe to our channel. Brought to you by IP Vanish. In association with Cody Add-ons.
I'm Hunter Stokowski.
And my name is Reed McKenzie.
And we are here to discuss some actual auction tips for your fantasy football drafts. So let's get right to them. So, tips. My first tip is buy big early. Believe it or not, the first person that gets thrown out in the draft, say it's Le'Veon Bell, might actually go for a deal. People often can be scared in auctions, especially if they're first one, and they might have a sheet in front of them that says Le'Veon Bell is $60. And so if you can get Le'Veon Bell for less than $60, be prepared to bid. Because as soon as one player goes in the bank, look out. The next one is going to go way over. Everybody's suddenly going to get excited. So especially early in drafts, get on those big players. Now, the other strategy I'm talking about here, stay away, is you can sit back and let everybody else blow their budget as they buy big early. Now, that actually leads into our second tip here, is load up in the middle rounds. So if you look at your cheat sheets and you see a bunch of guys in the second and third rounds that you really want, you know, they're number one receivers with a good quarterback, they're number one running backs that appear to be bell cow running backs. Those are the guys that you can actually target. So instead of just, say, getting one in the second and one in the third, if you're doing a draft, you might actually be able to get two guys that are potential second rounders, two guys that are potential third rounders. You might end up having 4 or 5 guys that would go in those second and third rounds and get them at reasonable prices. As soon as people have loaded up on those early guys, they've spent their money, they might not be willing to go over budget and get the player. So maybe a guy like Devontae Adams, who's, say, he's $40 projected. As soon as he gets up to 41, 42, 43, other players are going to shy away. They've already spent their money and they don't see the value there. And sure, you're paying a couple of dollars over, but you're getting a guy you feel could be in for a big season. Another tip is when it's your turn to actually pick a player to go into the auction, always throw out somebody you don't want. If there is a Packers fan there, you throw out the best Packer. If there's a Redskin fan, you start throwing out Redskins because those guys are going to bid on them and you can easily bid them up. Just be careful. Don't ever bid on a player a value that you wouldn't actually want to pay. So if you're bidding up a guy and you bid $10 and suddenly gets dropped on you, you're going to have to live with that $10. So be prepared to actually want to have spent that much. So you can bid up early. Just be careful. Our next tip is throw out quarterbacks. Of course, it depends on the league you're in. If it's a 10-team league where people actually are bidding on quarterbacks, sure, throw out quarterbacks there. If it's a 12-team garbage league, throw out quarterbacks constantly, especially early in the draft, because people, again, are just going to spend all their money on these quarterbacks. Well, let's do the math here. There are 32 quarterbacks. There are 12 teams. So there's going to be 12 quarterbacks gone, plus a couple. Some teams are dumb enough to go with 2 quarterbacks. All I'm saying with that tip is you can drain other people's budgets by continually throwing out quarterbacks, and you can do it for quite some time. Of course, you need to be mindful of the one you want, but if it's a 12-team garbage league, and you can stream a quarterback because there's 20 starting quarterbacks on the waiver wire, then that's a good strategy for an auction. Throw out those QBs. My final tip is, if you really want a kicker, if you really want Justin Tucker or Gostkowski, you can throw them out early, a bit of $1. It'll be a bit of a screeching record effect. It'll kind of slow things down, and somebody might be willing to spend $2 on a kicker. But let's be honest, you should not be spending more than $1 on a kicker. They're easy to stream. Sure, there's some great ones out there that can help you win, but get that kicker out there, especially the one you want. This is where you should throw out a person that you want. Throw out a kicker you want. So you throw out Tucker for, even if you want him for $2, throw him for $2. It's not a big deal. Nobody else is going to bid on him. You get Tucker. There's a big option, though. If you do throw out Tucker for $1, somebody could bid $2, so you're kind of screwed. So get those kickers out there for $2. So, a few other tips that I'll mention here before the end is, of course, you need to be mindful of other people's budgets, but you should be doing these auctions online, and so it should be easily tracked. I know for my upcoming auction this season, you need to be wary of the rules. So my league is a 12-teamer, and it's just the waiver wire is pretty simple. So I'm streaming quarterbacks, I'm streaming a tight end, I'm streaming a defense, I'm streaming kickers. I'm going to get a bunch of those second and third round guys at good values, like Fournette, like Adams, AJ Green. they're not the highest guys, but they're going to put up big points this year. And I'm going to try to stack on those guys, and then later on I'll just pick up a bunch of garbage, and then I'll drop those guys and pick up other guys on the waiver wire. As long as I'm aggressive, get ahead of the curb, maybe get a few young running backs that actually hit later on, I feel like I'll be in good shape. Fingers crossed for no injuries. I had Dalvin Cook last year. Actually, my strategy last year was I stayed away, and I got some good values. I got Gronk for cheap. I got Dalvin Cook, although he got hurt, and I got Hopkins for a well-discounted price there, and I ended up winning some money last year, and that was good. And but it really came down to streaming in that league. So if you can stream, make that part of your auction strategy. Read anything to add.
I think you have said it all, Hunter.